Everybody, we're going to get started this morning. Thank you all for coming and participating. I'm going to continue to let people into the meeting as I see them join. We are today going to talk about the quick tip. The first thing we're going to talk about is the quick tip email that I sent out earlier this week, which was draft emails, the ultimate time saver. So what I meant by that was so much of our communication with our clients is the same over and over again. I have written the same, time for inspections email 50 times. So eventually I got smart and decided to have a draft folder in my email, and I would keep drafts of probably the top 10 emails that I sent out the most. One is about the appraisal coming in, and one is about it's time for inspections, and one was now we're going to write our repair request called the removal of contingency. Another one is called your home search, and that is essentially just an email where I interview the new buyer about what they're looking for. What is their search criteria? So number one, by having that in a draft folder, I'm not having to recreate that email over and over again and potentially forgetting something. Number two, it's at my fingertips ready to go. So if it's 8 o'clock at night and some lead comes in and they're going to be a potential new buyer client of mine and I'm on my phone, I can very easily copy that draft email on my phone and forward it to them, introducing myself and asking them essentially my interview questions about what they're looking for in a new home. So it just makes it very simple. In that way, I wouldn't have to wait till the next morning when I'm back in front of my laptop or my desktop to send them that email. So for those two reasons, it has worked very, very well for me over the years to have those just sitting in my draft folder ready to go. I would recommend you take a look back at what are some emails that you find yourself routinely sending. Or you can certainly use the quick tips email that I sent you on Tuesday of this week as just a jumping off point to say these are some of the ones that you would find useful as well. I tried to really brainstorm through the entire process of from contract to closing, as well as prior to contract writing, as to what is some of the communication that my clients need. And what I think it will also do for you is it'll help you be communicating with your clients more often. They need consistent communication. They need to hear from you at least once a week throughout the process, even if your update is, it's Monday and there's no update to give, but this is what should be coming up this upcoming week. If you are not sending an email to your clients during the process of their contract every week, they're going to start to get antsy and nervous and feel like maybe you're not making them a priority, which of course is not the case. But an email scheduled for every week is how you can make sure they feel supported and that you are still on top of it. So I yesterday started something new and I'm excited to share it with you guys. We had the IT person, the technology person that we use come in, and he and I brainstormed for a couple of hours yesterday. And I think we have our arms around a big project. We are going to be putting all of the resources that the office has created over the last 15 years, and we have figured out a platform to put them all on. So they're going to be folders you can go to, and one of those folders will now be essentially scripts. They will be draft emails that you can copy. So there'll be one about home inspection. There'll be one about upcoming closing, switching utilities, transferring your mail, all of those types of emails that I think you would find useful, we're going to craft for you, and you'll be able to copy them and customize them to yourself and copy and paste them into your email provider and be able to have those sitting in your draft folder ready to go. That way they're already pre-written for you. You can use them as they are, or you can customize them, or you can again just use them as a sort of thinking spot to start, okay, I want to have those 10 emails. I'm going to write my own, but at least then Ashley and Jennifer and Donna have given me an idea of what I should be sending out. So there'll be a folder with draft emails in there. and you will be able to copy those, use those, customize those. I'm excited about this project because I have a lot of resources that sort of live all over the place, and I don't have them in one collected, curated area. So that's what we'll have now. So there'll be a folder for training manuals. There'll be a folder for all the YouTube training videos. There'll be a folder for these draft emails. There'll be a folder for vendor lists. So I know you've seen me over the months and years asking the firm for recommendations, most recently for a gas furnace installer. So we're keeping track of all of those vendors that our agents recommend. So in that folder for recommended vendors, we'll have the list with all the contact information for gas furnace installers, plumbers, electricians, handymen, contractors. That way, when someone does have a question, I can direct them very easily to the list, and they'll be able to reference that list and provide some vendors to their client. So we're excited about that. It was a little bit of a struggle trying to figure out where we should host all of these things. So I think we figured it out finally. And so we'll be diligently working on getting that up and running. So of course, we'll send you links to it when it's ready. Anybody have any questions about that before we move on to the next topic? Anybody? Jennifer, is your microphone working? It is not working. Well, you can run in here if you have something to add. Okay, so the next topic I want to talk about is the Graduate Realtor Institute, commonly called the GRI. So the GRI is a National Association of Realtors graduate program, if you will. It does not satisfy continued education per se, but sometimes continued education and GRI classes overlap, and you can get credit for both. But the Graduate Realtor Institute is really more of an education about the act of actually doing real estate. You know that your continued ed you take every 2 years is really more about knowing the laws and knowing the dates and all the stuff we don't actively use when selling real estate. The GRI program is much more in tune with what does your daily life look like as a real estate agent, and how can you be putting your best foot forward in real estate and using best business practices when conducting your business. How can you be the most professional real estate agent possible? So the Graduate Realtor Institute is a series of modules that you work your way through. Deepak is a graduate of the GRI. He has worked very hard over the years to get all of those classes in. And before coronavirus, that really required a lot of travel sometimes. I think you only have 5 years to complete all of the classes. I took several when I first was licensed, and then I had too long of a gap, so I'll have to take those classes again. So once you get started in it, I would really recommend continuing forward and getting all the way to the point where you've graduated. Now, I'm still very happy I took those classes. I learned a lot from those classes. They are very interesting, and the instructors most of the time are seasoned agents who've been in business for a very long time. So they have a lot of great stories to tell, a lot of great experience in the topic that they're teaching on. Deepak, feel free to share if you feel like it. If you don't, that's okay too. He graduated this year with his GRI. And
I did finish it within a year, which required a lot of travel. I mean, there were a bunch of classes. I think I went to Northern Virginia 3 times, Winchester 2 times. Like you said, not all the classes are being offered at Roanoke. While I was taking those classes, now the Charlottesville area office was talking about they were going to offer all 12 or 10 classes right there over a period of time. Yeah, so that way you would only have to go to Charlottesville if you wanted to just take those. And yeah, you do get a lot. I mean, I learned a lot. I mean, like you said, like if you're doing this full time, you should do it, because that will give you an idea of what to expect in your full-time real estate career, what you're going to go through. Like I do it part-time, so I did it, so I learned it too. But if I was to do a full-time, now I have the resources, all my booklets, all my, course material, I can go back and say, okay, well, okay, now I know what to do. So that was pretty helpful.
It is, and it really is more focused on actually being in business as a real estate agent rather than our continued ed, which again is more about sort of knowing the stuff you need to pass the test. GRI really is about helping you advance as a professional real estate agent in your real estate career. I really have enjoyed all the classes I've taken. Donna, do you have something to add?
Samantha said she got hers in 1985.
Really? That's awesome.
And Kathy brought up the point about the, is there an annual fee, I believe.
So Kathy, are you saying there is no annual fee for the GRI licensing? And I
think
yes. Can you hear me? Yes, that's
Yes.
correct. I have mine also, and I like it that it's a designation and a license and there's no annual fee. I think some of the others, there are annual fees to them.
There are, you're right. They really feel that the GRI is something you have earned for the lifetime of your real estate career. So once you have it, like Samantha got it in 1985, she has it forever. She's allowed to use that designation on all of her marketing materials. And it really does just set you apart from other agents, because in a listing presentation, you're able to say, I have gone the extra mile and I have gotten the maximum amount of education I can, other than getting your broker's license, for real estate. I'm a graduate of the Graduate Realtor Institute. So it does give you perhaps a little bit of an edge there if you're competing against other agents. Plus, it's just awesome for picking up new tips and tricks. And what I like about it, which I think Kathy and Samantha and Deepak will agree with, is that your instructors are not from your area. The other students are not from your area. So you really are getting ideas from other parts of the country. So you're finding out what other markets are doing, and you're able to take those ideas back to your market area.
You also build a referral program because, like you said, different areas and different realtors here, you can actually physically meet somebody and see what their personality is and see if you want, clients to refer to them or not.
That's a great idea. You're absolutely right. Yep. All right. Anyone have any? I can hear you now, Jennifer. Yes, Kara. Kara,
where is the link? Is there a link for the information for the GRI?
I'll ask Jennifer to put that in the chat window. Absolutely. I should have put it on our agenda.
Okay.
Thank you, Jennifer.
All right.
Anybody have any other questions about the GRI program? We're whipping right along this morning. That's what I always say, and then we talk for 55 minutes on the last topic. That's what happens every time. Okay, so moving on. I would like to talk about the market cooling off. Do you feel like it's cooling off yet? Do you feel like it's coming, and how we need to adjust for that? What I've experienced is I think it has slowed down a little bit from its fever pitch even a week ago. I listed a new house Friday and we got an offer last night. We have another offer coming in before lunchtime today, but that's 4 days, 5 days, 6 days into our listing. That is not what I would have seen even 3 weeks ago had we put that house on the market 3 weeks ago. So of course, still some houses are having 2, 3, 4 offers within 24 hours. But I think we're seeing a slowing down of so many competitive offers and how quickly they're coming in. That's what I'm hearing from other agents. I'm interested to look at the stats and see how many days on market some of the new pending ones are seeing. We still obviously do not have enough houses on the market for us to sell, but the ones we do have on the market, I'm not seeing any more 4, 5, 6 offers in 24 hours like I was seeing a month ago. So I think several things are contributing to that. If I were to take a guess, I would say we're really now in the thick of things with schooling, and anyone who has any kids at doing any sort of hybrid learning or online learning, they're probably not shopping for a house now. They've probably hit the point now where they're a little overwhelmed with what school looks like now, and they're maybe hitting the pause button on looking for a house. I also think that the interest rate is going to stay low maybe not as low as we're seeing it right this minute. But I think a lot of people have taken advantage of just going ahead and refinancing their house instead. If they were shopping for a house and they couldn't find a suitable home because of the competitive market we were in, I think they've maybe opted to go ahead and do a refi, maybe go ahead and use a renovation refi. My sister's currently doing one of those. They were interested in maybe looking at another house, but ultimately they're doing a renovation refi and going to go ahead and fix up the house they have and make it more suitable for themselves. That made a lot of sense with a 2.8 interest rate or a 3.0 interest rate. And so that's a family that will not put their house on the market and will not be purchasing another home. So again, that still restricts our inventory. But it's one less buyer out there too. So I think we're seeing some of that. The numbers from the mortgage companies are that refis are still through the roof. So you have to remember that everybody who's refinancing is not coming to market. So because of that, I think we're going to start to see a little bit of a cooling off in the market. Now, that is completely my conjecture. I've been wrong before. I may be wrong again. We'll see. But I'd like to know what you guys are seeing. When you're submitting offers now, when you're putting houses on the market, are you seeing the same sort of fever pitch we were seeing a month ago? And I'm going to pull this curtain down, this blind down, since the sun's about to hit me right in the eye. And I'm going to see if you guys will weigh in a little bit on this, please. And Jennifer did put the link to GRI in there.
No, I have a listing, but I mean, we had a bunch of showings scheduled for the next day when it was coming soon. But my particular, listing is, I think, just a bit overpriced. So it has a little downfall. It has a really steep slope into the driveway. So that's kind of, hold back for the buyers to, otherwise, I mean, like when I first had it coming soon, I had calls coming in to showing the next day when it was coming live, like 5 or 6. I felt 5 or 6 appointments set up for that. The first day was coming. It just depended on this particular listing. It's just everybody, that's what they mentioned. That, man, it's a great house, but that driveway is just not what, people look at. It's pretty steep driveway going into the garage. So, yeah. I think it's
Gotcha.
still there. Yeah.
Well, and Samantha's sharing that she's getting offers on homes that aren't even active yet. I assume she's talking about her coming soon.
Right.
Do you mind sharing in the chat window, Samantha, how many offers you're getting on your coming soon? Are you seeing several?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi,
Okay.
Sam.
It's a house across the street from me. It's 136,950. I've got 3 showings today, and it doesn't even hit the market till tomorrow. So,
Well, keep in mind that if it is coming soon, it can't be shown until you've made it active. So
okay.
you'll
Yeah,
have
I'm
to,
gonna put it. I'm gonna
you'll
put
have
it
to
active.
kick it to active today before anybody gets in there. That way everybody.
I am. I'm gonna do it right now in a minute.
Thanks, Sam.
And then I'm getting ready to list one. I think that will go quickly, but
Well, but you always price yours very aggressively and price them right. You've just been doing this so long. You've got such a good finger on the pulse of what pricing should be. So
but
I
how
would
do you
expect
get the seller to agree to it? That's the problem.
that many 30 years in the business is how she gets her sellers to agree to it. Samantha, do you have any advice on how you get sellers to agree to an appropriate price? And thank you, Jennifer, for including links to the GRI classes that RVAR is having coming up. That's a perfect opportunity to have those.
well, the one across the street from me, they had it rented for 10 years. And on my street, we have 9 houses on the market, and they've all are under contract. I don't know what's going on, but everybody's selling. And I just went over and talked to the seller. He was over there working, and he said, what do you think I ought to price it at to get it sold in 24 hours?
Wow.
And cheapest one that is sold was a 2-bedroom, was $125. The one down the street sold for $189,950. 3 bedrooms, 1.5 bath. So I looked at him and I said, we're going to put it at $136,950. You're going to pay all the closing costs, and this is what you're going to walk away with. And he said, do it. So I did it.
Confidence, Deepak. Apparently it's just confidence.
I know.
And Sam, that one that was very high priced on that road went pretty quickly. I know you were concerned about that.
Yeah, I
Have
couldn't
you heard
believe
if the appraisals come back on that?
Well, they've got survey flags out there, but I have not, I just cannot see the one across the street from me that I sold for 162 and it was assessed for 158. And that dumb appraiser appraised it at 156. She wouldn't even come up to the appraised price. 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, absolutely beautiful, gutted inside, everything brand new. And when I called her, she said, well, it should have been at 144. And I said, my gosh, you won't even come up to the assessed value? And you know who I'm talking about. And she did not. So I heard about the 165, but it closed for 165 and it was no better than the one I had.
Well, I know that one was what, 180 something?
189.5 and 189.950.
Right, right.
And they're both under contract in 24 hours.
Yeah, they went pretty quick. I watched that one.
Wow. Are they both brick ranches?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Have they
And-
been renovated, Samantha?
No. The 189.5 has an extra guest room in the back, but the one for 189.950 is 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, unfinished basement. I could not believe they got that. They had it on sale for sale by owner for 144.950.
Mm-hmm.
And when this agent listed it, she put it at 189.950. So
Wow.
I'm just waiting to see. There are no
Yep.
comps in this area for that much.
Right.
So that's why I priced mine. I wasn't going to price it higher and have my seller set on it.
Mhm.
Number one, he's a friend and he was a neighbor. And he just looked at me and said, Sam, you're the expert. I'll do whatever you tell me. I like sellers like that.
Yes, don't we? Sellers who let you do your job. Yes.
Yes.
All right, good insight. And so let's chat for just a minute about appraisers having to find values in neighborhoods that have never had that value before. I would not want to be an appraiser right now. This is a period of time where the market is demanding higher prices for houses, and the appraiser's job is to prove to the lending institutions that that house is worth that. And it is very difficult. Jennifer has a friend who is an appraiser, and I'm sure she's been hearing about the growing pains they're having trying to find those values, and the lenders trying to make them show the value. And it's creating some issues. Jennifer, do you want to?
I just think, having her as a bestie, you get to hear from a different perspective on how she's seeing the market. And, appraisers do sometimes have to give the bad news and tank deals, but it's the market, it's the house, it's what has sold around you that's doing it. It's not actually the appraiser. And she's like, we're always the bad guys because we're delivering the bad news. But especially in this market, the lenders are making them bracket everything. Mm-hmm. So even if they push the limit just a little bit to try to get it to come into value, they have to bracket and explain absolutely everything. And they actually get graded and scored on, how many times the lender comes back and asks them, okay, you didn't bracket this, you didn't explain why you did this increase or this decrease, or they're just really watched very closely by the lenders, because after all, the lenders is who's on the line for the money. So sometimes it's not as easy, and it's taken me having a friend doing it to understand it as, daggone that darn appraiser, she tanked my deal. Well, okay, she has a job to do just like we do. Mm-hmm. And somebody's watching her and somebody's over her. So it's not as easy as let's just up it just a tiny little bit. So it's kind of nice to have that different perspective on it. She is swamped, absolutely swamped. The market is just pumping right now. They are getting backed up. So it's taking longer to get the appraisals back. I don't know if there's less appraisers. I don't know if it's just the need and demand is there. I always put closing costs in my listing now, so price won't have to be higher. Well, be careful with that, because my last listing, we pushed the limit on price, and the realtor put all of their closing costs on top of our asking price. And I educated my seller and said, look, we're already pushing the price, so it's all about communication. But you also need, if you have a buyer, to educate them as well on putting their closing cost money on top, because what happens if it doesn't appraise? And in our case, it didn't. We were like $3,000 off, and the buyer's agent didn't have that conversation with that buyer to say, hey, if it doesn't appraise for this, what are we going to do? They just expected my person to come down. Well, we wouldn't have taken that offer because we got our full price. You know, we're sorry that you put all your closing costs on top. So there was some back and forth there. So I just think communication and educating both the buyer and the seller on adding those closing costs to the top is very important, because, you know, in our case, the appraiser, I didn't even try. It's the same appraiser Samantha had on one of the others. And I didn't even try because I had already pushed the limit on the price. I knew it was high.
And you're asking that appraiser to find the value of the home and then say, artificially, it's worth another $7,000.
Let me just give you that
because
gift.
that buyer wants to build their closing costs into, this is a market where a buyer may not be able to put their closing costs on top. There might not be enough market value there to be able to do that. And when Jennifer is referencing the appraiser having to bracket the property, what that means is they are challenged to find a property more valuable and a property less valuable than this property, so that they can make adjustments both directions and show what a house that's worth more looks like and a house that's worth less looks like. That's what she means by bracketing. They've got to find a house better and less than the subject property.
And
That's
one
right.
other thing is the inventory, because they also have to show comps that are active, and the comps are not staying active and long enough to be able to use them. So that's another issue that the appraisers are running into, is with active listings.
That's right. Anyone have any questions about any of that? The last thing I want to add about the market cooling off is it will likely catch a few sellers in a bad spot. When it does eventually cool off, we're going to have listings that are going to languish a little bit if their seller doesn't reduce their price. So we're going to have listings that are pushing the envelope on value for their listing price, which is what we're doing right now. We're asking more for listings now than ever before, because the market is allowing that, because of the demand, the pent up demand. But as the market starts to cool off a little bit, there are going to be a few listings that get stuck. And unless that seller has been educated by their listing agent that if the market starts to slow down and we start to see fewer and fewer showings, we need to be very quick to adjust our price, then that property is going to languish on the market. So that is a conversation you want to be having with your sellers. Okay, well, what happens if we're on the market 2 weeks and it hasn't sold yet? We likely need to be swift with a price reduction, unless your seller is willing to sort of stay the course and keep it on the market for a long time. We're in a weird market now where even a week on the market, the property is starting to get stigmatized because people want to know, why hasn't it sold? I personally had a listing go under contract that we took less for it than I think it really was worth. And that was because it had been on the market for a little while. And we realized that it was starting to get stigmatized by having been on the market. So we went ahead and worked an offer we had in hand and took something a little lower than we were wanting, and a little lower than I thought it was worth. But for my sellers, that was worth doing rather than racking up additional days on the market as we go into fall. Anybody have anything to add or questions?
I have a question.
Please, Kathy.
So I have a house that had a circumstance that I had to take it off the market, and they don't think it will be able to be back on the market until November.
Mm-hmm.
And they are asking me, should we just wait until February or March, or should we go on and try to sell it and rack up those days during November, December, January? It's a higher price category. It's probably
what's the original expiration date on it?
I think we had put it until the end of the year, and right now it's on the withdrawal. but I could cancel and start it over.
Do you know what I would probably do? You could cancel it and start it over, except the MLS system knows the expiration date. So you'll actually be in violation if you put it back on the market before the expiration date as a new listing. So what I would recommend is go ahead and put it back on the market when it's ready. But when you do, and this is a good tip for everybody to know, when you go to change the status to back on market, you're going to put that day's date in. And then right below that is something called fall through date. Your fall through date should be the date that you withdrew it. And then it won't actually calculate those days that it was withdrawn as the days on market. So that's very handy to know if you get a contract and the contract falls through. So if you get a contract and you mark your listing as pending, and then the contract falls through due to inspections or appraisal or whatever, when you were going to switch that listing back to back on market, you want the fall through date to be the day you marked it pending. That way those 23 days or 12 days or ever how long it was in off market status as pending, those days will not count towards the days on market count. So in your case, Kathy, what I would recommend is to go ahead and put it back on the market when it's ready. Make sure you list the original withdraw date as the fall through date, and then let it run through the end of its original expiration date, which is the end of the year. Then don't put it back on the market until maybe April 1st. If you put it back on the market April 1st, then you'll have had it off the market for 90 days, and that cumulative days on the market will reset to 0. So April 1st, you'll have a day 1 counter on your cumulative days on the market. Now, I know that seems hard to wait all the way till April. Plus, we're betting on next year's spring being a really strong market. And honestly, I just don't know anymore what these markets are going to be doing. You know, I would like to tell you I have confidence in my feel for the market, but the market is a little wacky. So I don't know how quickly it's going to cool off or stay strong. I don't know what's going to happen with the elections and how that's going to impact housing. I just don't know. So I would hate to lose this fall for that property if it were to go under contract this fall. But you also want to keep it off the market for 90 days to reset that counter on cumulative days on the market. Jennifer, do you agree with that, or you do?
I do.
And
Yeah.
I had another question also. Just, do you feel that a house with furniture sells better than, I know your house that you just put under was vacant?
Yeah,
'Cause
Kathy and I
my sellers want to move.
Kathy and I have properties that were listed that are I mean, they must have been done by the same builder. They look almost identical to each other in different subdivisions, but both in the same municipality. Hers is lived in and is beautifully decorated with furniture. Mine was completely vacant. Honestly, for me, it always depends on how it is decorated. Your home was decorated very tastefully, very, very of today. It's not dated at all. And it really does show the scale of the rooms better with furniture, in my opinion. My big old listing that I had with no furniture in it, I think looked a little large, a little too large sometimes in some of those rooms without furniture to sort of anchor the room. So I honestly preferred the way yours shows with furniture than mine that was vacant. But also, if they need to move, they need to move. I mean,
Right. Do we have anybody within the company that does staging that might, for a fee, come say, leave this, take this, leave this, take this? It's hard for me. They are my neighbors, like Samantha said, and friends. And I hate to say, I hate to be the person to say it. I just wondered if we had someone in the company that did staging.
you know, I have a couple of ideas on that. Let me ask them.
Okay.
One was sort of doing staging and had a business plan on that, but I haven't heard much about it lately. Actually, we have 2 like that. So let me check with them and see if that's still something they're doing. And then I'm happy to share that with the company. Yeah.
Thank you.
And just my 2 cents worth on that. Sometimes houses have spaces that you just don't really know what to do with. And I do like those areas staged to kind of give people ideas of how to use spaces. That's not the normal bedroom, living room. Sometimes it's on a little landing where you can have a desk or something like that. I think sometimes odd spaces or odd configurations, I think staging can help in those areas.
Agreed. And
Okay.
especially something like, I know this listing of yours, a listing where the rooms are so large and spacious and the high ceilings and they're very grand homes. It can seem like too much space until they're decorated sometimes.
Right.
Okay.
So I
Thank
like
you.
to stage.
Kara, what?
So I like to do a little bit of staging, just like the master bedroom, the kitchen, and like towels and things in the bathroom. But I've been using a air mattress that's on a stand, and then just put some nice duvets on it, like really simple stuff. Because honestly, I can't afford to pay a stager. It's pretty pricey, but
I was
it
just
does
in a
help.
home
It
like
helps.
I was just in a home like that, Kara, and the
Yeah.
master bedroom was decorated gorgeous and the bed was beautiful. And I was talking to my client. I leaned back on the bed, like just sit on the edge of the bed, and whoop, the whole thing slid over. And I was like, oh, well, that's not a real bed.
That's funny.
You could also do, I don't know if y'all discussed it, but digital staging in this time, because a lot of people are looking through the pictures, and you don't have to have material physically present in the house. So you could do digital staging.
Yeah.
The Shores Photography does that. And I think there's a fee, but I don't know. I haven't done it myself yet. But that way, people see it how it looks.
I think it's like, yeah, I think it's like $65 a room.
Yeah,
or
so
something.
I mean, they're well worth it, because most of the time people are now just looking at the photos, see how they look and how the house looks. I mean, that's.
I've actually seen some of that on some of the listings. There was one out in Fincastle, Donna, we looked at together. It was kind of neat.
So no,
Yeah.
So
And
I have a list.
staging can be very expensive, but the digital staging is quite affordable. Yes.
So the one that we looked at, didn't they have, like, the pictures showed with the digital stage and then a picture without it, so you got sort of both comparative pictures
Right.
to look at.
It did.
Kara, were you going to add something?
Yeah, we were talking about listing staying on the market. Through the lake is a whole nother beast. All of the other houses that went on the market, we put ours on, and then all the other ones in the neighborhood came on the market, and they've sold, and mine's just sitting there. And we've already done a $10,000 drop.
Yeah,
and I'm
that's
just
hard.
like, because our showings have, cut back quite a bit. So I just don't know if maybe, would you guys put it on the market in the spring and just take it off for the lake? I don't know.
Again, you want to make sure that there are 90 days between the original expiration date and your new listing date, so that cumulative days on the market goes back to 0. Otherwise, you're taking it off the market, but it's still going to be, counting days on the cumulative days on the market. And, additionally, sometimes we don't know why it isn't selling. The house that Kathy was just speaking about, that was my listing, where we ended up selling it for less than I think it was worth, I could not understand why it wasn't selling. And Kathy and I actually put our heads together because our listings were so similar and both weren't being shown very often. And so we couldn't come up with a good idea, honestly. And then I got a call from another real estate agent at another firm who actually lives in the neighborhood where my listing is. She lives about 3 doors up, and she's about to put hers on the market to sell it at the end of the month, which is why we decided to work this offer we had in hand and maybe take a little less so we wouldn't also be competing with her up the street. But she called me and said, hey, I need to know why your listing isn't selling. And I said, I got to tell you, I do not know. I do not know why it is not selling. And she said, I don't either. I actually went in it today because I knew there'd be some glaringly obvious thing to tell me why it hasn't sold. And she said, it's beautiful. I can't find anything at all that would cause it not to sell. And she was a little shaken by that because she has a similar home up the street that she's about to put on the market. And so she was hoping there was something really obviously wrong with my listing, but there's not. So sometimes we just get those houses that for whatever reason, they just don't move.
Okay.
And Kara, the lake is a different beast.
Yeah.
It really is. And it could be a number of different things down there. The way it sits on the lot, how close it is to the water. I mean, it's just a whole nother beast down there. More power to you, girl. I'm not brave enough to do it yet.
All right, gang, we're going to wrap up. Anybody have any questions for us or anything new you've been seeing, any new trends you've been seeing, anything you want to share before we wrap up?
So I know that you're close to time and we have to download, but just really quick, REALTOR is having the 2020 legal update coming up. It's October 7th and it's going to be through Zoom, and it's a $10 cost. You can sign up on their website. Laura Farley is going to be doing the legal update. And then they're also going to be talking about contracts back to basics. So there's an education opportunity there for some continuing ed. And it's always great to join in on that with REALTOR.
Agreed. All right, gang.